November 24th, 1971, Portland, Oregon. A man in a dark suit and sunglasses walks up to the ticket counter of Northwest Orient Airlines. He gives his name as Dan Cooper. He pays cash for a one-way ticket to Seattle. Nothing about him stands out. He looks like any other businessman flying home on the day before Thanksgiving. He takes his seat, orders a bourbon and soda, and waits for the plane to take off. What happens next would become the only unsolved hijacking in American aviation history. Shortly after takeoff, the man passes a folded note to a flight attendant. She assumes it's a phone number, a passenger trying to get her attention. She slips it into her pocket without reading it. He leans over and quietly tells her, "Miss, you'd better look at that note. I have a bomb." She opens it. Inside, he's typed his demands: $200,000 in cash, 4 parachutes, and a fuel truck waiting when they land. He opens his briefcase just enough to show her wires and red cylinders. Whether it was a real bomb or not, nobody was willing to find out. The plane circles for hours over Seattle, while the FBI scrambles to meet every demand. Northwest Orient's president personally authorizes the ransom. By the time the plane finally lands that night, $200,000 in unmarked $20 bills and 4 parachutes are waiting on the tarmac. The passengers are released. Only the hijacker, the pilot, the co-pilot, and 1 flight attendant remain aboard. He gets his money, he gets his parachutes, and he orders the plane back into the sky. FBI agents on the ground had one shot to get eyes on this man. In the rain and dark, they hand over the ransom bag and the parachute packs at the base of the aircraft stairs. It's the closest anyone would ever get to him. He instructs the crew: fly to Mexico City, stay below 10,000 feet, keep the landing gear down, and don't pressurize the cabin. Every demand pointed to one thing: he was planning to jump. At 7:36 p.m., the plane takes off again, climbing into a stormy, rain-soaked sky over the Pacific Northwest. Only the pilot, co-pilot, and flight engineer remain in the cockpit. The hijacker stays alone in the cabin with his money and his parachutes. Somewhere over the dense forests of southwestern Washington, he orders the crew to lower the aft staircase, the exit built into the tail of the aircraft. At approximately 8:13 p.m., the crew notices a change in air pressure, a sudden pull on the aircraft, as if something or someone had exited the plane. He was gone. $200,000 in cash strapped to his body, alone in the freezing night air, thousands of feet above dense wilderness, in a rainstorm, wearing a suit and loafers. No one saw him land. No one ever saw him again. What followed was one of the largest manhunts in FBI history. Hundreds of agents, military personnel, and local volunteers combed the forests of southwestern Washington for weeks. Helicopters swept the tree line. Search dogs worked the ground below the flight path. They found nothing. No body, no parachute, no briefcase, no trace of a man who had jumped from a moving aircraft into a storm and simply vanished. The FBI opened a case file. They gave it a name: Norjack. It would remain open for the next 45 years. For 9 years, the case sat cold. Then, in February 1980, an 8-year-old boy named Brian Ingram was digging in the sand along the Columbia River. He uncovered 3 decaying bundles of cash, over $5,000, still bound by rubber bands, the serial numbers a perfect match to the ransom money. It was the first physical evidence found since the hijacking, but it raised more questions than it answered. If the money ended up here, did that mean he hadn't survived the jump? Or had he simply lost it along the way? Over the following decades, the FBI investigated over 1,000 suspects. Letters claiming responsibility surfaced and were dismissed. Amateur investigators, retired agents, and true crime researchers kept the case alive long after the trail had gone cold. In 2016, after 45 years without a single solid lead, the FBI officially closed the case, redirecting their resources toward more urgent priorities. The file was archived. The mystery was not. To this day, no one knows who D.B. Cooper really was. No one knows if he survived the jump or if his remains are still out there somewhere in the wilderness of the Pacific Northwest. No one has ever definitively spent, found, or traced another dollar of that ransom money. He remains the only unidentified hijacker in the history of American aviation, a man who stepped out of a plane into a storm and somehow stepped out of history itself.